Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
In episode 418, Christine Campbell Rapin discusses 3 non-negotiables to focus on daily to exponentially grow your business.
When that happens, I often say you're the likable expert. However, what you really need to be as a business owner is the must-hire expert. And I give a ton of information for free. I said, the knowledge is not the problem. And if it's the problem, it's the easiest thing to fix. I'd rather you take information from me who's successful in business than to go to the Kevin Costner Field of Dreams, I'll build it, hope they come strategy, or Google, or a random Facebook group who you have no idea if they're credible or have built a business to be your guide. And I said, take all the knowledge you've got for free. I know the biggest challenge is not in the knowledge. It's what do I do with it? And gosh, I'm a human. I get in my own way and I don't apply it very well. But knowledge, I always say, without implementation is just entertainment. And I hope as a business person, I'm more than entertaining.
Talking with the Experts.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org. Do you love your podcast and dislike the editing and uploading to the various platforms? Would you like to spend this time with your family and friends or work on your business? Podcast editing doesn't have to be a chore. Talking with the Experts partners with podcasters who need help with audio and content editing. If you'd like to know more, contact me, Rose Davidson, using the link showing now, or send me a private message. Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Today, my guest is Christine Campbell Rapin, and we're going to talk about 3 non-negotiables to focus on daily to exponentially grow your business. Oh my God, that's the 3rd time I've said that word today. I'm so pleased I got it right. Yay! Now, it isn't hard work that equals success. It is knowing what to focus on. This is often a mystery to us, and therefore we often get caught up in doing things that don't, move that needle. Business is elegantly simple when you master the foundations that lead to growth. And Christine is a business advisor and the owner of Clear Acceleration Incorporated. She is an energetic, tell it like it is advisor. Oh, I like that whole person. She's a mentor. She's a consultant and speaker with more than 25 years of experience in marketing, sales and operations, working in everything from startup to the biggest companies on the planet. Christine believes that business can be elegantly simple when you know what to focus on to create success. She is an international best-selling author, holds a Bachelor of Commerce and an MBA in International Business. Wow, and she's got an impressive resume. Welcome, Christine. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, my pleasure. I love meeting people from all walks of life and all over the world. It's that's why I started this podcast, so I could meet more people.
Love it.
Christine, tell me a little bit about your background and a little bit about your business.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always tell people, first and foremost, I never set out to mentor and coach, and that's a really important part of the journey. I did know from a really young age that I would do something in business for myself. I had no idea what it would look like, and I certainly would never have imagined it's the 3 businesses I have today. But a conversation from someone literally halfway around the world who I used to work with reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, I think you went back to Canada. super confused by what you're doing now, because it was a world away of the industry that she and I had connected through, and said, you always struck me as someone who wanted to do something for themselves. Do you want to have a conversation? Because I maybe have something that would spark curiosity. I was so flabbergasted that she even knew my name that I was like, yeah, I'm now totally curious. I've got to have that coffee chat. And she sparked something in me that was, it is time to start building something of my own. And through the first business, I built it 1 hour a day as a side hustle on top of a very big corporate job. I was running half of the country. I had a very heavy travel schedule. I had children that were teenagers and very active teenagers at that. Like, starting a business wasn't really the best thing, and it was totally not on my radar. But I was curious and said, it's time to start building. So that 1 hour a day was everything. And it was through that my peers, fellow entrepreneurs, kept saying to me, what the heck are you doing? And I kept thinking, like, what do you mean? I said, I treat my business like a business. And I grew up in the world of business. So to me, it was just a very natural extension. But I didn't realize that so many people start this journey of entrepreneurship as an accidental entrepreneur, and they don't have the business background that I had. And I said, well, it's really simple. You're overcomplicating it. And the reason you're so exhausted is you're doing the hokey pokey. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And you're dancing all about, hoping something works. And it's exhausting, and you're not seeing the results. And I said, it's really simple. And when I explain what it is, they're like, okay, I get that. That sounds logical. But then they start to go, I can't do it myself. I might need some support. And I said, sure. I want to see you succeed. I mean, I'm all in for helping more of us succeed and not give up on our dreams. And then it was like, this might be a long road. I really value your time. I'd like to pay for it. And it was like fascinating. It was such a really unexpected conversation, but it really led me to recognize what was evident to me was a mystery to most. And if I could help them build the foundations, I would watch my peers and my friends create the life they wanted. And I was all in for that. And that actually leads me to where I am today, where a big part of my business is really helping people shift from that hobby to the business. Mm-hmm. And when you want to ramp up to whatever level you want to see success at for your life, you're going to need to understand that you must build the foundations to do that. Otherwise, this business owns you and you don't own it. And nobody really signed up for that.
No. And you're right. A lot of us, we start our own businesses thinking we've got all these skills, let's just give them and let's sell them to other people. What they don't realize, though, is you may have all these great skills, but there's a lot of work that goes behind promoting those skills. And it can be really disheartening when, the first year or maybe even 2 years, you have maybe 1 or 2 clients, and then, things drop off, and it's really, you want to give up.
And it's disheartening, and that's what happens. Many do.
It's really hard, and people don't realize that you've got to have a hat for everything. And if you've got very little finance behind you when you first start, you can't outsource it, so it's all up to you. And you're tired and you get disheartened because nothing's happening.
And you doubt yourself. And this is the thing that's so destructive. It's the belief that, baby, I haven't got what it takes. Maybe this big dream is for somebody else. Maybe the universe screwed up when they planted it in my head and they really were meeting the person behind me. And it can be really self-destructive. And I just want to say, honestly, with everything I am, if you have the idea, you can make it happen. The how is the easiest bit to solve. The bigger question is, who do you need with you on the journey? And you might need to really be intentional about asking that question and seeking support, finding the experts that can help guide you and raise your expectation of it's possible when you wobble, because you will. I just say wobble faster. It feels like a straight line.
Yeah, that's a great one. I like that. Wobble faster. Yeah. Okay. I'll remember that next time I get something that's not going quite right and I'm a bit wobbly. I just wobble faster. That's it. Mm-hmm. Christine, what are the 3 non-negotiables that we need to focus on every single day?
Well, the first one is a real recognition that 2 things drive your business. They will predict your revenue in the next 90 days, how many people you know, and how many offers you're making. because those are the two essentials of any business on the planet. So the first one that's non-negotiable is a recognition that most of the people you will serve this year, you haven't met yet. So you have to be very intentional about building an audience. That's really being strategic about getting in front of more people, more ways, more often. And it doesn't mean buying leads. Please stop doing that because you're hunting. And instead, what I want you to do is think about, if you're aware that there's a need in the marketplace, which should be the first thing you research before you jump into the world of business, then it's already there. You know there's a market. You know money is changing hands. The thing that you need to focus on is building the audience who starts to have an awareness of why they should demand you in that pool of opportunity. And so I love particularly low tech, high result, high impact strategies because they're easy to start. And you can build a very successful business. I'm going to say up to the $1 million, right? Simply by doing these 3 low tech things. They are speaking, just open your lips, talk to people, networking, going to meet peers and really being intentional about that. And I like events, and that's either borrowing somebody else's stage or creating your own. The reason I like these 3 things is because they're experiential in nature. Never forget that people do business with people. People want to see you. They want to see how you think. They want to see you credible, walking your walk for more than a nanosecond, which is a social media post. And they really also want to know who's in your network. Because if you're going to particularly attract a high paying client or you're going to offer a high ticket service, it is confidence building to have an experience with you before they show up and say, tell me what it's like to work with you. And if you're really building that audience well, that is what's happening, because they are moving step by step towards you with every interaction until they've almost made the decision, you're a credible expert, and I'm curious how you can help me get the result I want. And so the guidelines I tell people is, if you have consistent clients today, maybe at a slow rate, but it is pretty consistent, then 50% of your time still needs to be on audience building. And that blows most people's mind. I said, the reason you create peaks and valleys in your business is because you stop building the audience. You don't control when the audience says yes. So you need to make sure you're really building a big pool of people who have an awareness of you, because they're all in different journeys. And most of your audience isn't ready to invest today. They're white knuckling their problem and trying to do it themselves. It's almost a sense of pride of like, I'll just figure this out. I can figure this out. I'll get a free resource. And until they realize they can't, they're needing to be in your ecosystem. But if you are not seeing consistent client growth and you're still wondering, that big question a lot of entrepreneurs ask is, why is it so hard to find clients? Let me tell you, it's not. The fact that Google, Pinterest, and YouTube are the biggest, most trafficked sites on the planet means that people are searching. The problem is they're not finding you, and there's a disconnect. But if you do not have consistent clients, I'm saying 70% of your time. And the really important bit of this is not just do it, but find the right rooms and constantly evaluate your own space, because you can't adopt the idea of a mentality of an employee, which means I went to all these networking meetings, or I went to all these events, or I had all these conversations, if you're not moving them forward or deciding if they're a potential person whom you could add value to, because at the end of the week, you don't get paid like an employee. And this can be a really hard thing to master in your business, because you're like, I'm so busy, I'm doing all the right things. And I'm like, does it lead somewhere? Your most valuable thing is time. Be intentional with it and really make sure you're moving the audience towards you or very clearly away from you, because they need to know they're in the right space with you. And if they're not your client, you do not want them kicking tires in your calendar.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them
let them self-select out.
past experience people want to pick my brain and but don't want to pay for a service. They just want me to give them all the information, and I used to do that all the time until one of my friends said, well, you know, you're not getting clients by doing that. They just want to pick your brain and they won't come back to you. And I thought, oh, okay, I hadn't
Hadn't
of
seen it
like
that way.
No.
When that happens, I often say you're the likable expert. However,
Yeah.
what you really need to be as a business owner is the must-hire expert.
Mm.
And I give a ton of information for free. I said, the knowledge is not the problem. And if it's the problem, it's the easiest thing to fix. I'd rather you take information from me who's successful in business than to go to the Kevin Costner Field of Dreams, I'll build it, hope they come strategy, or Google, or a random Facebook group who you have no idea if they're credible or have built a business to be your guide. And I said, take all the knowledge you've got for free. I know the biggest challenge is not in the knowledge. It's what do I do with it? And gosh, I'm a human. I get in my own way and I don't apply it very well. But knowledge, I always say, without implementation is just entertainment. And I hope as a business person, I'm more than entertaining. I mean, I hope I'm entertaining, but I don't hope that's the measure of my success.
You want to be sharing the knowledge, but don't give away all your trade secrets.
That's right. How to do it is everything. So that's the first one. Audience building, and most people, I said, don't apply themselves consistently to this one. And it is, without it, your business will stall, and you can correct it through action.
Okay, well, that's obviously a big one, because if you don't have audience, you don't have anyone to tempt to become a client or a customer. So yeah, audience building is probably the most important of the well, I haven't heard the other two yet, but I'm waiting. But yeah, I would think that would be the most important, because you don't have audience, you don't have clients. So yeah, and sometimes it's hard to know what to post, like where to post it, how to post it, what words to use. Even though you've been listening to prospective clients, sometimes it's, if the words don't resonate with you, the words that your clients are using, sometimes you don't use that in your copy, and so you are pushing people away because you're not using the words that they use.
And that absolutely leads to the second component of what's non-negotiable. And I call them the so what factors. It's a bit like pretend you're a little kid and you're that little one who keeps saying, so what? To every statement you make. That's that game. And I said, it's way more fun for me to ask the questions. It's tough when you're on the hot seat. But there's three of them that really lead to movement. And my whole goal when I'm mentoring or consulting is your goal is to focus on the movement. Not all movements forward, to be clear, but movement's what creates momentum. And so you decide the rate at which you travel, but you've got to focus on the movement. And three so what factors drive movement for your client. The first one is clearly understanding your why. And this is not new. I've actually met Simon Sinek. I've had a whole conversation with him around this. But your decision to grow the business has to be a non-negotiable. And you need to close the back door so that you take action past your convenience factor. But the thing that makes you very different in the marketplace is your why. And you need to own it and talk about it, because it's the thing that sparks curiosity, and people do business with people. So instead of vomiting your business at somebody and explaining what you do when they haven't asked yet, is to say, this is what lights me up. And they're like, well, that's interesting. Tell me more. They're learning about you as a person, but your why can't be surface. It has to be like oxygen. And often it doesn't start there, or we lose it in our journey of business because we start to see it through somebody else's lens. And in my own business, the day I first started, I was like, I need this for me. And then it morphed into me doing it for my husband and my parents and all these other people. And my husband, bless him, called me on it and said, I just want you to know that we are so proud of what you do, but that vision board isn't us. We're in it, but there's a whole 85% of it that's not us. So don't sell yourself that this is for us. You do this because it's like oxygen for you. Your desire to help people makes it, even when I'm scared, I've never done something, I'm like, I won't be able to reach the other side if I don't try and learn and focus on that instead. So the why is the first so what. The second one is really going much deeper than you already are on the problem. Lots of people can describe the problem that their ideal client has, but that's not enough. To your exact point, I want to know, what does the problem cost them. Remember that your client is in the utter darkness, white knuckling the solutions for themselves. And at some point, you want to say, I see you in the dark. And the second thing is you want to say, there's light on the other side of that darkness. And you might, through your social content or through other ways that you experience them, start to say, here's some footprints to follow. And when you're ready, come out of the light, and you are seen at that point as credible. But so often, that's where the mismatch of language comes in, because they don't have your place of enlightenment. And businesses are famous for this. Jargon, utopia. I want you to find your purpose and live your best life. Great. It's not that I don't want that. It's that I'm not Googling for that. And for you to really connect and stand out from the sea of sameness is what I call it. You've got to live in their emotions. You've got to connect in that language. And we get so surface level because it's what we see our peers doing, but they're not successful either. So be careful with your benchmark there. But what you really need to do is jump cannonball deep into their emotions. And the one way I like to think about it is say, what's the conversation they're having at the kitchen table? What's the emotion around it? What's the fight about? What's the conversation they're having with their girlfriends over a glass of wine or with their kids in their sport arenas? I said, that language, you need to keep, I like a language bank, document them, keep them in a notepad somewhere. Every time you overhear it, you don't need to be weird and creepy and interrupt the conversation, but you need to know what it was, because you speaking that language is everything. And only when you understand what the tipping point is, when they say, this is non-negotiable, I can't stay in the darkness anymore, I'm so done my own BS, will they move. And you need to be visible when they're moving. And you have to be already there, being really credible to them in that darkness. So that's number 2. The second, so what is actually the problem costing them? And really own the hotness, the intensity, and the language they're speaking. You've got to repeat it so that when they walk into your space, they go, oh, I think I'm in the right room. And they might lurk a long time, but they feel safe in your space because they're in the right room.
Yeah.
And if they're not, they'll close the door and walk out.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, the language, that was really, I just lost my train of thought then.
The language is sometimes the biggest challenge.
It is. Not only that though, but it's getting to know them, they're getting to know you. And sometimes it's, there's some barriers because of the language, and you're trying to be someone you're not. So it's best to be your authentic self when you're, posting, or you're talking to your clients on the phone, or you're at a meeting, or wherever you are. Don't use jargon for a start. It's really bad. And use terms that, the everyday person can understand, because there's nothing worse than going to a meeting and someone's using acronyms, and what the hell does that mean?
Simple is better.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is where the elegance is. Like, honestly, they're searching for the simplest of terms because they don't have the language you do. Mm-hmm. They don't have the finessing of the language the way you do. And if they're just trying to find you, simple is really what they're looking for. Like, the biggest things people are searching to is how to blank, one word, not a phrase. And that's a really key thing. And that leads to the third, so what? It's exactly what we're talking about, is you've got to know why you are the right person for only a very small group. But let's be clear, there's 8 billion people on the planet. You can serve 10,000 of them and make a really successful business. Really successful business. But the story that you don't want to tell is actually the one your client will connect to most. So you've got to own your story, the vulnerability, the fact that we're a hot mess, we're humans, and realize your humanness is actually the biggest thing that's going to connect in your business. And I say to people, when all of our imposter syndrome and concerns about what people will think and all of that hesitation to get visible, which is about the audience, I said, you're thinking about this self-centeredly. I want you to rethink this. If you know somebody is in the darkness, struggling in a way that you can really see that struggle and feel it, and you have the capacity and the capability to help them, and it's just you and them in the darkness, you as a human being are pulled to go help. They do not expect you to be perfect. They do not expect you to have it all together. They expect you to be human to human. And I think sometimes that's the thing, is we standoffish in I don't want to share too much. And I don't mean, if you're not healed, don't overshare, but you do need to show that you've made the journey, because you're not the solution to them. You're the guide to helping them find the solution, and you're relatable because of your experiences are ones they can connect to. And in fact, you're often helping people you have a really intimate journey of the steps they took. So you've got to share that, but you've got to own it, and no one can duplicate it. There can be a lot of people who are in your market that do what you do, but nobody does it like you.
Yeah,
So
that
stop
makes us
sounding like
unique.
everybody else.
Yeah, that's our unique selling proposition, is because we do what hundreds of other people do, but no one does it like we do. And that's
right.
what we have to get across to prospective clients, is that, yeah, no one does it like me. And if, we're a good match, then, you're better off coming with me than going with somebody who you don't resonate with at all.
100%.
Mm.
And that leads, to the third thing is, how do you know if you're the right person for someone? And how do they know you're the right person for them? Well, the third non-negotiable is that you need to have conversations. Like, conversations is the fastest way to cash in your business. It's the fastest way to create impact. It's the fastest way to move anything. Again, we're talking about movement, because there's a science to this. If people can get a micro buy-in, saying, oh, I like that. Interesting. I'm following along and I'm leaning in. That's the audience moving towards you in essence. If they'll do it 5 consecutive times, the 6th time is almost always an affirmation. So what are you doing to nurture that sequence? And that's not I'm selling on every conversation. Honestly, that's awful. Stop that. It's really about, them deciding, I like her. Her quirky sense of humor is true. She is going to not BS me. And gee, I'm living in her head now. What's she doing next? I'm curious. And they really are moving towards you. And this is a much more holistic way to actually see growth in your business. It's very consistent if your audience building is on point, because then they show up and you're wondering, where did they come from? And they're like, I've been watching a long time. I'm done. I've drawn the line in the sand. I need to get to here. This is my vision. Okay, great. I'd like to know what it's like to work with you. The first question to ask is, well, where do you see my value? What do you think I can help you with? Don't assume anything. Even though you're really consistent in your messaging, what they hear is very unique to them. You need to guide that conversation. And I think so often we have this tendency to hide behind the keyboard, or to think that, I don't want to have sales calls. This isn't a sales call. This is a coffee chat that moves towards it. And then when there's an intersection point of recognized value, that's when it pops. And you need to play the long game and say, just be caring about your clients. Clients will become friends faster than friends become a client. So what are you doing to be a person, not the business? In all of who you are, it is important to share you, but conversations are the game changer, and people do not get into enough of them. And I wonder, I think it's a price thing. I said, it's not a price thing. I think I should, discount my services. I'm like, you don't know enough people, you haven't made enough offers, and you haven't had the conversations. Conversations enrich everything. What are they really looking for? What is their micro win? Because often when I'm working with clients, the thing I notice is they want a really big win. And so they're talking about the result as really big. For most of your clients who are in the dark, they would be ecstatic with a micro win. I don't need a 5-minute meditation. I'd like to have 5 seconds of quiet time in my head. If you messaged, I could help you with 5 seconds and no chatter in your head, you'd have my attention.
Yeah, I think
you're saying, you could sit in a Zen trance for 5 minutes. I'm like, that is not going to be me. And I walk right past you, even though I might need exactly what you're offering. And it's this little bit of finessing But when you get your audience and you get clarity around the so what's, they're the movement piece, and you simply get into conversation, guess what? You convert a lot more clients, which means you're making more impact, and income always follows it. It is elegantly simple. It's not effortless, though.
Yeah, well, no, it's not effortless, but you're right about the conversations. It's not really a sales call. It's now just a conversation, because people don't want to be sold to. They want to find out what you can offer. They want to know more about you as a person, and they want to know not necessarily how much it's going to cost them in dollars sense, but a lot of times it's to do with time. What is involved with for them. How much time did they have to give up? Because this leads back to your second so what, which I just now remember what I was going to say about the cost to the client. And it's not always the dollars. It's sometimes the time that it takes, or the resources that they have to put into it to that can cost them a lot. And sometimes they just don't have that. They can't afford to give up those things.
To travel at that speed. Absolutely. And I know that's true in my own case. When I've made big investments in my business, it has never been because I doubted the end goal. I had real good clarity because I knew what the so what was, and my why was non-negotiable. But what always triggered the movement was, would I recognize myself if I stayed at this pace, and how long could I do it? And the answer was, I would be unrecognizable. I can't stay in this for 5 years to get there. I need to get there in 18 to 24 months. I'm going to need to pay for somebody to help me get there faster, because they keep us moving. And I always view myself as a thinking partner. I said, I can help you build the skills. That's going to be something that will be infinitely valuable from a foundation point of view. But when I, ask my clients, what are the success? Yes, the metrics are there. The client growth is there. But the big wins are, I brought in team. I'm playing with other people now. The big wins are, I'm not working 7 days a week anymore. I'm no longer working 12 hours a day. And I say, the first year when you're building, your commitment has to be solid. You choose the speed. At some point you go, what would I really like for my life? It's always the first piece I always take my clients through, the vision piece. Where are we going? And that way we can ask ourselves, are the movements we're making in support of this? Or is there a mismatch of priorities? It's that mismatch of first impressions that are really best managed through experiences. Because if it is off, you can correct it and you have visibility to it. Because if it's not corrected, this is why often people struggle with client conversion. I said, there's a break of trust and you can't get it back. Because they will go find somebody else that they feel is more trustworthy. And it's not to say that you aren't trustworthy, but somewhere along the line, the message got off course. But when you're having experiences, they're going to go, oh, she may have wobbled over here a little bit, but I see the path. I see the connections. I see the dots, which is where my business background came from. I said, in order to have scaling, which is an operation thing, you've got to have a good offer, which is the sales component, but you can't get the right people in the room if you don't have the messaging and the audience. These are all sequential. Build it any way you like. You can't miss a piece.
No,
otherwise,
and
you
often
implode.
we do. Often as startups, we do miss some piece of it somewhere along the line. We think, because I have all these wonderful skills, people are going to come flocking to me, because I've got so much to offer, and it's, I've done my research and the pricing is, seems reasonable. But, you've missed out the thing about having conversations with people. People aren't just going to come and beat down your door. That's what I thought when I first started. I knew all these female entrepreneurs, and I thought, they'll just come pounding on my door because I can take away all this admin work from them. And no, women are the worst to deal with when it comes to admin work. They will not give up.
Women have a tendency to have this real badge of honor. I will figure it out.
Yeah.
Women do this way more than men do. And we want to prove to ourselves we can. And it's very admirable. It's also the thing that's slowing you down. And I'm never saying outsource something you don't understand, because both of you look at each other saying, isn't that you who's going to take the lead on this? But what is true is that to your absolute light bulb there, it's like, I thought it would be easy because I thought my value was evident. And because it was evident, people would just open their wallet. Spoiler alert. It doesn't happen that way for almost anybody I know. It happens occasionally. There are unicorn clients who hear something in that moment and say, okay, I think I actually need to hire you. And it's always fascinating when it happens. And I know it does happen in my business on occasion. But the bigger journey is the growth towards that. It's the intentional nurturing, and then a recognition that I can't clearly see my own value. This is one of the hardest things entrepreneurs struggle with is I don't see my own value. So I'm trying to justify. When the other side is confused by this, they're like, well, I see your value and it's over here. And you're like, I think it's over here. And this is exactly how I started my business. Like I was just doing my own thing. And they're like, it's valuable what you do. I'm like, what's valuable? Like I honestly, was just perplexed by what do you mean it's not obvious to you how to treat your business like a business? Like I couldn't see the forest for the trees in that moment. And it so many times on my own business journey was that the case. I'm like, I'm talking about client conversion rate. And I remember doing some case studies with some past clients and writing up, their stories and their successes. And what was fascinating is they're like, she's my marketing coach. I'm like, I'm your what? I'm like, I don't market myself that way. I do more now. But it was fascinating, her interpretation. She's like, because she helped me figure out what I wanted to say. And in order, once I knew what to say, I could get the clients. And I'm like, you want to get the clients. It's just a mismatch. It's such a funny tandem story, but it's so true. We can't see our own value. And I would encourage all of the audience, like, if you're not sure of your value, ask your current clients, ask other people in your peer business network, work with somebody to brainstorm this. Because once you understand the value as it is on the other side, it is the biggest accelerator to your business.
Absolutely.
And it is often a much smaller win that they're looking for than you can possibly imagine. And so we want to stuff everything into our offers and stuff everything into what we can do for people. And they're like, I'm so overwhelmed and confused. And then we know a confused mind won't buy.
And
where do you want to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's another thing our startups do. You're right. They want to cram everything into their offer, and rather than separating it out and, letting the client go from one step to the next step to the next step until they've reached the top of the ladder. But, we want to take all those rungs and put it all in at the bottom, and hopefully, the stuff will stick to the wall. So
yeah, and it doesn't work so well.
It doesn't work like that. And, there's so many startups that, even people that have been in business for 2 or 3 years or even longer still follow that same pattern, and they don't take constructive criticism. Maybe that's not the right word. Don't take advice very well, because I think, well, I know it all, and I've been doing it for this long, and well, how come your business isn't growing?
Yeah, it's stalled.
Yeah.
And we all, as humans, we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in 5. And so I certainly know, and when I look at how I offer my services, I always say to people, for firefighting, that's one thing, and we can do that in short periods of time. But if we're talking about scaling a business, we don't do that in a nanosecond. So we always look at that runway saying, where do you see your gaps today? Where are we solving for one? Are we solving for many? And what's the inherent value in there? Like, I can see how many things I could accomplish if I stayed in a journey. I'm like, great. Well, where do you want to start? But this is a really interesting thing, because I said, I know. I said, if you're clear, you will get there. The question in which you mentioned earlier was, what's the speed? It's so easy to overestimate how fast we can travel. But we need to slow down to think and ask ourselves, do I have the business I want? Because I say to people all the time, if we do audience building well and we get the message right, how many clients do you want to serve? What's the life you want? Because not everyone wants to bring in team and do other things. And some people really want to do the service delivery. I said, well, there's a cap. How many hours do you want to work? And the dream for many of my clients is, I want the certainty of the economics of my business. I want a wait list of people. I said, okay, well, then we need to be talking about the messaging, which is, I do this, I know how much capacity I've got. I'm either below it, which means I'm taking clients, or I'm above it, which means my next start date is March. And if you train your audience to think that way, they'll be like, great, I need to put my name on the thing. You also get the commitment, which takes all of the roller coaster emotions of, oh my gosh, where's my next revenue coming from, off the table. And that's not fantasy. That happens when you do these 3 non-negotiables. You choose the speed, but I will say these things are solid gold. Go take them and run.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's 3 great points that, you know, we as entrepreneurs, even if we've been in business for like forever, should take on board, because, you know, I think it's very good common sense really to take note of those things and use them a lot more than what we've been using them, rather than being a bulldozer and, you know, just plowing forward, because it doesn't really get you anywhere, because you just end up being overwhelmed by the whole process.
No, and we forget the foundations. Like I said, this is hard to see. It's true. It is, you're right, common sense. And common is the most uncommon that we see. It's like, go back and remind you, where am I actually spending my time? And, you know, that's part of the business journey of audit. Because I know I've had many times in my business journey, and there will be many more, where I'm off track. I'm like, wow, I'm acting like an employee. Not really focusing on the things that I need to. I'm giving to my time to other people's business, not my own. I look back, I haven't made any offers recently, which means I'm not having the right conversations that's pulling my audience towards me, or I'm not visible enough to new people. And only I can make the awareness of that and then decide I might want to shift what I'm doing day to day if I truly want to see outcome shift.
100%. Yeah. Christine, you've got a free webinar coming up, how to scale and attract high-paying clients consistently without complicated tech. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I love this webinar, and it is something that I run regularly in my business, because when you're busy, it's really hard to see the forest for the trees, which is what we've been chatting about. And this is a real focus around how I actually coach and mentor people. It's called the Scale Accelerator Framework. And there's 5 things that we do in the model when I'm coaching a client long-term. But this workshop is going to give you the first key foundation of it to help you get aware of what is it that you need to recognize there's a gap on and move forward. So this is a really good time. What I love about it, it's only an hour long. You can afford the hour, make it a priority and go, where am I? What have I lost sight of? And it's a little bit, in my style, an abrupt reminder. If you really want the outcome, you've got to go back to the foundations. Yeah, and everybody's got room to polish and improve them. And this webinar is really going to give you that first insight, because once you get it, there is about, you know, improving your communication. It's about accelerating the speed. It's about stop doing what's not working. This isn't about more hours. Stop doing what's not working and amplify what is. In my business, I said, I love low tech. I love experiential things. The recognition the day I made it, when I was like, what's the 20% that's working to give me 80% of my growth? I'm like, wow, it's speaking, networking, and hosting events. Okay, so why am I doing 80% of the other noise? That seems kind of crazy. I simply got rid of it and my business exploded. So I teach clients to have awareness in this workshop so that you can make decisions about what comes next for you. And that's really going to, again, get you back into movement, which is so much of everything that comes next. Be the spark and go move.
Yeah, we tend to you know, develop patterns, and we need that pattern interrupt, and sometimes it takes someone from outside to see that you need that interrupt in your habits, patterns, whatever the case 100%. May be. Yeah.
And sometimes it's also, I've heard it now enough times that I should pay attention. That's part of it too, which is like, nothing you said is rocket science, but oh, I really heard that this time.
Yeah. I think sometimes there's a time and place for things too, that you know, the time might not have been right then, but you know, you've heard it for the 10,000th time, and now is the time that, you know, I should be taking notice of it, because you realize that you're just not going anywhere.
And that happens with a lot of my clients. Like and my most recent clients are all people that have been in my world for a long time. They know what I stand for. They have heard the elegant simplicity model that I mentor on. They watch me do it in my business, and they've often even had quotes from me in previous months. And what really shifts is they're in that space and going, I see you've moved in a year, and I have not. I'm done making excuses, because if I could do this by myself, I would have. And I see every big shift comes when you get utterly clear about your own BS story. And they're like, I'm ready. And I want to do it right away, because I have wasted the opportunity to make more impact. And this is my year. And in order for me to do that, it's who do I need with me on the journey?
That's it. Absolutely.
And that's everything.
It is everything. Christine, where can people find you or indeed find a link to this webinar?
I would love to invite you to come find me on the World Wide Web. It is my whole ecosystem, and it is my name, really simple, Christine Campbell Rapin. That's RAPIN.com. You'll find on that page the opportunity to come and join that webinar, and you'll also find a whole bunch of other events and resources to really help you move. I want to see more of us succeed, and hopefully this will be a good start for you. Thank you for asking.
Christine, it's been an absolute pleasure. I was just wondering if you'd like to share with us some words of wisdom before you go.
Absolutely. The thing that I will say is this: never hunt for clients. What you need to focus on is the philosophy I have, and I have a Post-it note. It sits right there on my computer, and it says, I never look for clients. I look for problems to solve, people I can support, and ways I can contribute. And those three things are about the audience building, the conversations, and knowing my so what factors. Because when I do that well, the right people come into my world. And I want you to adopt that strategy instead of thinking I'm closing clients, I'm hunting leads. All of that is part of the problem, because it's aggressive language and you're going, it's hard. What if it wasn't hard?
Yes.
Doesn't have to be.
So much simpler.
True.
I love your philosophy. I'm going to go and write that down after this.
Beautiful.
I think it's worth copying and putting on my computer too, because I think it's something we should all remember, that we're not here for us. We're here sales are really a service, and so we're here to serve. So I think if we took it and looked at it that way and turned it around, so that we're not thinking so much about us, but thinking about others, I think a lot of people's mindsets would change.
And it's a lot more fun. Like, honestly, bring the fun back into your journey. Please, 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 please. I had one ask. That's it. Go make this journey a heck of a lot more fun.
Absolutely. Loved speaking with you. I loved listening and learning about the 3 non-negotiables. It was absolutely amazing. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Rose. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.